Children, I hope all of you have done your assignments and the activities what were given in the previous sessions. With that hope, we'll just move on. Natural resources are broadly classified into two types: renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Perennial resources are those which exist abundantly and do not get exhausted at all. Example, sun and wind. Children, remember that I told you perennial resources come under renewable resources itself. When you broadly classify, you just classify it into two main groups. But when you actually go in detail, you can do it in parts of three. So, dividing broadly into two types, you get renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Renewable resources are those which are found in plenty and do not reduce in quantity when used again and again. For example, animals, crops, sun, air, soil, forests, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water are renewable resources. Sun and water can be used many times. Soil is the main source of food for plants. So, soil is formed by the weathering of rocks. All living beings need oxygen to breathe and live. Plants release oxygen and absorb carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Children, if you remember, we also dealt with renewable resources in detail. So, amongst that, solar energy. Solar energy is the energy obtained from the sun. Solar energy is used by plants for photosynthesis to generate electricity in solar cookers and heaters. Wind power is the use of wind to provide the mechanical power through wind turbines to do jobs like milling and pumping. Geothermal energy is the thermal energy generated and stored in the earth. Biomass is an organic material that comes from plants and animals. Hydropower is the power derived from the energy of falling or fast running water, which may be harnessed for useful purposes. Non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources are natural resources that cannot be replaced after they are used. This means that they exist in a fixed amount on Earth. Rocks, minerals, metals, uranium, and fossil fuels such as petroleum, coal, and natural gas are all non-renewable resources. A non-renewable resource is a natural substance that is not replenished with the speed at which it is consumed. It is a finite resource. Whereas renewable resources are the opposite. Their supply replenishes naturally or can be sustained. Renewable resources such as solar, wind power, and water are unlimited in supply. Non-renewable resources are those that cannot be remade, regrown, or regenerated. They are so called because they are limited in nature due to their non-renewable property and will extinct in the future. Once these resources are used up, they cannot be replaced, which is a major problem for humanity as we are currently dependent on them to supply most of our energy needs. The four major types of non-renewable resources are coal, oil, natural gas, nuclear energy. Oil, natural gas, and coal are collectively called fossil fuels. Fossil fuels were formed within the earth from dead plants and animals over millions of years, hence the name fossil fuels. Decomposing plants and other animals or organisms buried beneath layers of sediment and rock have taken many years to become the carbon-rich deposits which we now name as fossil fuels. A long time ago, our earth was covered with swamps filled with various microorganisms, trees, and other large leafy plants. And as these organisms and plants died, they drowned to the base of the swamps and oceans and formed layers of spongy material called peat. Over millions of years, this peat was covered with sand, clay, and other minerals, which converted the peat into sedimentary rock. Then, over the next few years, different types of fossil fuels are formed depending on the combination of organic matter present, how long it was buried, what temperature and pressure conditions existed when they were decomposing. Now, to know more clearly about fossil fuels, we'll just watch this video clip so that you understand as to how it is extracted, how is it formed.
Fossil fuel is a term used to describe a group of energy sources that were formed from ancient plants and organisms during the Carboniferous period approximately 360 to 286 million years ago, even before the age of dinosaurs. At that time, the land was covered with swamps filled with organisms and plants. As they died, they sank to the bottom of swamps and oceans and over millions of years started decomposing under layers of sand, clay, and other minerals. Different types of fossil fuels formed depending on the combination of organic matter, temperature, time, and pressure conditions while decomposing. There are three major types of fossil fuels: coal, oil, and natural gas. Coal was formed from ferns, plants, and trees, which hardened due to pressure and heat. Oil was formed from small organisms like zooplankton and algae, where pressure caused the more complex organic matter to decompose. Natural gas was formed by the same process as oil, only it was exposed to more heat and pressure, causing it to further decompose and turn into a gaseous form. Fossil fuels are sought after energy sources because they have a high energy density. They are the world's dominant energy source. Fossil fuels have a variety of applications from electricity production to transport fuels. They can also be used to make a variety of common products, from plastics to cosmetics to even some medicines. These resources have powered industrialization over history and continue to do so today.
Now, after understanding how fossil fuels are extracted, let us learn the different types of fossil fuels and let's go through the details of these types of fossil fuels. There are basically three types of fossil fuels, namely coal, mineral oil, and natural gas that supplies about 80% of the world's energy. These non-renewable resources can be obtained through mining and extraction inside the land or huge ocean. It is said that our whole human race is prominently dependent on these fuels to carry out the tasks for their existence, and without them, it would be difficult for us to coordinate our survival efficiently. And I hope you all agree to this fact, children. Children, having known that non-renewable energy sources are also natural sources available in the nature, it needs some kind of treatment on it to have it extracted. So usually, in general, pressure and temperature is what helps us to extract non-renewable resources. Pressure and temperature in different combination with different elements present under the earth helps us to extract non-renewable energy sources. It all depends on what we are planning to extract from the earth's um, underground or earth's surfaces or beneath earth's surface also. Pressure and heat work together to transform the plant and animal remains in crude oil into crude oil, also known as liquid petroleum. Crude oil is also known as liquid petroleum, coal, and natural gas. The energy in the plant and animal remains originally came from the sun through the process of photosynthesis. Children, plant and animal absorb plants and absorb solar energy to perform photosynthesis, and you know what is meant by the process of photosynthesis. So solar energy is stored in plant tissues which animals then consume, adding the energy to their own bodies. When fossil fuels are burnt, these trapped energy or this trapped energy which is there in the animal bodies is released. Now moving on to non-renewable resources one by one. Crude oil happens to be the first one that we will discuss now. Crude oil is a liquid fossil fuel that is found in rocks below Earth's surface and is pumped out through wells by drilling. Crude oil is a naturally occurring unrefined petroleum product composed of hydrocarbon deposits and other organic materials that exist as a liquid in underground geologic formations and remains a liquid when brought to the surface. Crude oil, children, exists as exists in liquid form even beneath the earth, and when it is extracted, it can be extracted in liquid form itself. Oil reserves are found all over the world. Crude oil is the only non-renewable resource in fluid form or liquid form. These petroleum products include gasoline, distillates such as diesel fuel and heating oil, jet fuel, petrochemicals, waxes, and lubricating oils. Plastics are derived from natural organic materials such as coal, natural gas, salt, and crude oil. Globally, crude oil is one of the most important fuel sources and contributes a major share in the world's energy consumption. Oil is especially important to businesses that heavily rely on fuel such as airlines, plastic producers, and agricultural businesses. Children, you know something, these non-renewable resources are not produced instantly. They cannot, I mean, it's not even produced in 10 or 20 years time. It took millions of years for it to form, and when it is extracted and consumed, there's no way for us to replace it immediately. Oil supplies will run out. It's for sure. The way we are consuming it, eventually the world will reach peak oil. Peak oil is a state wherein we could have all the oil reserves drained out of their quantity. They might be a lack of availability of oil or its highest production level. Some experts predict peak oil could come as soon as 2050. So it's predicted that the way we are consuming oil and the oil supplies might run out in 2050 itself. Petroleum is a broad category that includes both crude oil and petroleum products. The terms oil and petroleum are sometimes used interchangeably. Petroleum is a naturally occurring yellowish black fluid found in geological formations beneath the Earth's surface. It is commonly refined into various types of fuels. Petroleum jelly. Children, I hope you have all heard of Vaseline or petroleum jelly or paraffin wax. Petroleum jelly is a byproduct of the petroleum manufacturing process, which is actually very cheap and effective. Now, this happens to be a picture of how petroleum is extracted from beneath the Earth's surface. You can see different layers of rocks and even a layer of water. It is usually drilled into water, that is, in oceans you have oil reserves. You might have seen all this in news or any other informative media as such. While extracting petroleum, they drill deep into the ocean, drilling through the different layers of rocks, and they try to extract this yellowish black liquid called petroleum. So this is a depiction of how the process might go on. And you can even see that natural gas also can, I mean, exist in the near vicinity, so that is also being extracted in the same process. Now, I hope you have an idea of how petroleum is drilled, children. Petroleum is extracted from under the Earth's surface. Now, the next one is natural gas. Natural gas is widely used for cooking and for heating homes. It consists mostly of methane and is found near oil deposits below Earth's surface. Do you remember to have seen it in that picture where petroleum extraction was shown? Yeah. Natural gas can be pumped out through the same wells used for extracting crude oil. Now, this is an important point to be remembered, children. Methane, which is in gaseous form, CH4 is the formula. Methane, CH4, is the primary component of natural gas. Natural gas is found in deep underground natural rock formations in coal beds. The main products of the combustion of natural gas are carbon dioxide and water vapor. It is a mixture of hydrocarbon compounds. Natural gas is supposed to be the Earth's cleanest burning hydrocarbon. Now, the next one being coal. Coal is a solid fossil fuel that is used for heating homes and generating power plants. It is found in fossilized swamps that have been buried beneath layers of sediment. Since coal is solid, it cannot be extracted in the same manner as crude oil or natural gas. It must be dug up from the ground. Surface mining and deep underground mining are the two basic methods of mining. These are the methods which we use to extract coal. The choice of mining method depends primarily on depth, density, overburden, and thickness of the coal bed. Once coal has been extracted, it can be directly used for heating and industrial processes or to fuel power plants for electricity. Now, the next type is nuclear energy. Nuclear energy comes from radioactive elements, mainly uranium, which is extracted from mined ore and then refined into fuel. Nuclear power is the use of nuclear reactions that release nuclear energy to generate heat, which most frequently is used in steam turbines to produce electricity in a nuclear power plant. Children, nuclear power can be obtained from nuclear fission, nuclear decay, and nuclear fusion reactions. About these reactions, you will study in future in higher standards, higher classes. Nuclear energy is produced without carbon emissions because reactors use uranium, not fossil fuels. Hence, nuclear energy is a zero emission clean energy source, and nuclear power plants do not produce greenhouse gas emissions. Currently, there are two ways to produce nuclear energy, that is through the use of fission reaction or fusion reaction. Fission reactions are more easily controlled than fusion reactions. This is why all nuclear power plants use fission reactions to produce energy and electricity. Nuclear energy has no place in a safe, clean, sustainable future. Though it has many advantages, but it is very expensive and dangerous. And just because nuclear pollution is invisible doesn't mean that it's clean. We assume that it is clean as it doesn't give emissions which harm the ozone layer and reduces greenhouse effect. It produces radioactive waste which has an impact on the environment and which is a negative impact that we have to tolerate or we have to find solutions for. Now, this ends today's session of non-renewable resources, children. We'll just list out all the points that you need to remember so that you can write it down in your notebook and have a notes prepared. Non-renewable resources are natural resources that cannot be replaced after they are used. Example, rocks, minerals, metals, uranium, and fossil fuels such as petroleum, coal, and natural gas are all non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources can be obtained through mining and extraction inside the land or huge ocean. The four major types of non-renewable resources are coal, oil, natural gas, and nuclear energy. Here, coal, natural gas, and oil are collectively called fossil fuels. Fossil fuels. They are obtained from the remains of dead plants and animals buried deep inside the earth for millions of years. Example, natural gas petroleum, and coal. Now, few products obtained from petroleum are petrol, diesel, paraffin wax, wood polish, ointments, dyes, lipsticks, chemical fertilizers, petroleum jelly, etc. The spongy material formed from the accumulation of dead plants and organisms on the ocean bed is called peat. Over millions of years, this peat gets covered with sand, clay, and other minerals, which converts the peat into sedimentary rock. Different types of fuels are formed depending on the combination of organic matter, time, temperature, and pressure conditions while decomposing. Crude oil is formed from small organisms and microorganisms under some pressure conditions which caused the most complex organic matter to decompose. Natural gas was formed by the same process as oil, which in addition was exposed to more heat and pressure, causing it to further decompose and turn into a gaseous form. Now, formation of petroleum. Petroleum is a liquid mineral found under the earth. Bodies or dead animals, Bodies of dead animals and plants are buried in the soil, which gradually react or they reach the bottom of the sea. Over a long period of time, mud and sand cover them. The action of bacteria, heat, and pressure on the dead organisms buried under the layer of rocks gets decomposed. They generally become a black liquid called petroleum. Formation of coal. Like petroleum, coal requires millions of years to form. The remains of plants and trees that are buried beneath the earth's crust do not decay completely. Due to the high temperature and pressure, they turn into coal under the layers of rocks. Since coal is a solid, surface mining and deep underground mining are the two basic methods of mining or extracting coal. Uses of coal. It is used in the thermal power plant for the production of electricity. Coal products are used in the making of plastics, drugs, cosmetics, fertilizers, and even medicines. Now, soil is a renewable resource which we had discussed in the second session. Just a brief note about how soil is formed and what is the composition. Soil is a renewable resource composed of gravel, sand, and clay particles. Humus or dead plants and animals, and bacteria, fungi, and minerals. This is the composition of soil. Formation of soil. Soil is formed by the disintegration of rocks, that is breaking up of rocks, which is called weathering of rocks. Rocks have cracks in them. When water gets into these cracks and remains there, it freezes during cold winter, forming ice. Repeated weathering breaks the rock into small grains of sand. Thus, soil is formed. Now it's assignment time, children. Assignment 2, fill in the blanks. Natural resources are broadly classified into dash and dash. You need to fill up all these fill in the blanks. Energy obtained from sun is called. Hydropower is generated by. Solar energy is used by plants for. Paraffin wax is a byproduct of dash. Formation of soil by disintegration of rocks is called. Plants release dash and absorb dash from the atmosphere. The thermal energy generated and stored in the earth is called dash. Crude oil is the only non-renewable resource in dash. Methane is the primary component of. You need to fill the blank. Second main, answer the following. What are renewable resources? Give few examples. Write few lines about non-renewable resources with examples. What are fossil fuels? Mention the major types of non-renewable resources. What is a peat? Children, all the questions would be having 2 to 3 lines answer. Next, third main, write short notes on. Most of them you can refer points to remember. You need to write about soil formation. Then second one is about coal, formation of coal, what is the composition, what is the types of extraction that is used. Then petroleum, about petroleum. This ends this session, children. Hope you're all doing well at home. Stay home, stay safe till I come for the next session. Happy learning. Thank you, children.